Okay, so what do we do this week? So we talked about C++ tools, right? We talked a little bit about CMake and how it comes into play with the C++ build and compile process. We talked about the C++ compile process. So we went over the basic steps of a build, right? So include files, and the CPP files are concatenated together into one large file. They're sent to the compiler, which in turn produces an assembler file, assembly code. That file is sent to an assembler, and that assembler creates an object file. And then the linker is responsible for getting this object file, adding any C++ library files, those with .a extension, and creating an executable for our application, right? High level overview of the compile process. And then we talked about how the CMake process uh, allows us to create one CMake file, and regardless of which operating system we use, the make files for each operating system are created, and then a build process comes into play, and then an executable is created. We talked about programs in memory, how when programs run in Windows, Mac, or Linux, they get their own memory assigned to by the operating system. And then we also talked about how C++ programs get allocated memory, right? So in this block of memory, there's the stack and the heap memory. And the heap is 2 to 4 gigabytes, random. C++ can manage it. The developer can also manage it by creating dynamic memory and managing that memory. The stack is limited, usually around 1024 kilobytes. Last in, first out structure. It is sequential, and C++ manages this. We also talked about the cloud compiler. Well, actually, let me go back here. So we also went over a Hello World program in Visual Studio Code and Replit and get students comfortable with using those tools. And we did the same thing, create a sample unit test program in Visual Studio and in Replit. We went over a GitHub overview, just high-level overview of the main use of GitHub for developers. And then I showed you how to upload code from Visual Studio to GitHub, and also with the Cloud Compiler. Um, we went into how CMake helps us choose which files we want the compiler to build. We talked about the review developer process. What is that? I'll talk about it in a little bit. And then we went over some examples, right? Okay, so reminder, there is a homework assignment for you all. It's not a difficult one. So let's look at it. Assignment. Homework 1, right? So you're gonna go through homework 1. You will open the SRC classwork 01 assign folder. So you classwork 01 assign folder. And in the header file, you are going to write the function prototype. Multiply numbers with one int parameter named num, and it returns an int function. So in essence, if you look at this, notice you already have a function here, int some numbers, and I show you how to use it, right? So you follow that same pattern. So then you come over here, and I'm asking you, okay, int value function name multiply numbers. So this is an int value function named some numbers, right? So get the hint here. And then it has one parameter named num1, okay? In the CPP, so notice if we go to the CPP here, I've already written the code for this as an example for you all. So you come here and you write the code, but for this multiply numbers function, okay? What is the code? Create an integer variable named num2. So in the function block, assuming this was the function you were creating, right here, create an int variable. How do I create a variable? Well, recall that I had an example for you all. And if you come here, examples, 01 module, main, nope, was it input. So this is how you create a variable, okay? The data type and a name, and we go back to the code that you all are going to be working on. So when you create this same kind of a code, but for your multiply numbers function here, in the function block, create an int variable name num2, give it the value 10. So you say like int num2 equals 10. That's what you do. Nothing tricky here. And then it's telling you let me see here. Okay, it won't tell you here, but in the source code, hold on. Okay, I got my bearings, right? So that num2 number, let me make this larger, kind of small. That num2 number, you multiply it with num1. And remember, num1 is the parameter that's going to be coming into the function, and you return their product. And then you write a test case in the test classwork test01 assign test file. Where is that file? Well, come down to the test folder, and you look for classwork, assign 1, types test. I've already included types for you up here, so you do not have to worry about it. I've even shown you how to create a test case for the existing sum numbers function. So down here, you're going to create another test case. Make sure that this name is different, otherwise your test will not run. And then create an assertion to test the multiply numbers function. Okay, just so if you follow this, then you should be able to complete this assignment. Also, after you test, then you go ahead and follow these instructions in main, which is more or less what I did as an example for you all. So if I go to examples, if you look at this example, if you didn't copy it, you can go to my repository source code to look at the example and use it as a guide to complete your homework. Okay, so next week, what we'll talk about creating variables and performing or doing math operations on them. We will go over the string object. We'll talk about data type conversion and typecasting. For now, don't worry about it. Operator precedence examples, right? Like parentheses first, division, multiplication, what have you. We'll talk about how to convert a number from one data type to another. We'll talk about like this concept of an overflow and underflow, right? So C++ has a lot of different data types. So we'll talk about how making sure that we understand those will keep us from generating program errors that are known as overflow and underflow. We'll talk about constants, and then we'll talk about using combined statements, right? Like, pretty sure you all did in Python. Okay. So finally, if you have questions on the homework, go ahead and submit your questions to the discussion board and into the homework 1 actually, collaboration, right? So I'll go here, change this to 1, homework 1 collaboration questions, and submit. So you will ask questions here. Okay, so let me go ahead and move it up. So if you have any questions on homework 1, then just post them here and I'll eventually get to them. Okay, thank you.